So, when you hear the name Charlie Kirk, you've probably got an immediate reaction. But, a lot of the time, that reaction is based on headlines or hot takes or maybe just some short clips you've seen. So for this, we're asking a really simple question. If we strip all of that away, what are the primary sources his own words actually tell us?
Welcome. Our whole goal here with this deep dive into Charlie Kirk is to follow one strict rule. We're only using verifiable primary source material. We're talking direct quotes from transcripts, legal depositions, and his own organization's messaging. So let's see what the record actually shows.
Okay, so to really understand the strategy, we first have to get the facts straight. Let's just build a quick baseline of who we're talking about, based strictly on what's in the public record. The public record gives us a pretty clear picture. He's not just a commentator, right? He's the founder of a major conservative youth organization, he's a media host, and he's a figure who's been directly involved in some major national events. Everything from testifying before the January 6th committee to tragically being the target of a violent attack. These facts really form the backdrop for his entire public persona.
So with those facts established, now we can start to look at the strategy behind the headlines. By looking at the recurring themes in his messaging, and again, drawing directly from the sources, a really clear playbook starts to come into focus.
At the very heart of his and his organization's strategy is this concept he talks about all the time: offense politics. The core idea, which you can find in his own books and messaging, is to treat politics not as some kind of negotiation, but as a culture war that demands a constant, aggressive push forward.
And look, this isn't our interpretation. This is a direct quote from Turning Point USA's own materials. It makes the strategy completely explicit. That language of playing offense is directly tied to the goal of winning what they themselves define as America's culture war.
So how does this offense strategy actually play out in the real world? Well, the source material reveals several key themes that pop up again and again. He literally wrote a book called The MAGA Doctrine to align his movement with Trump-era politics. During the pandemic, he famously compared vaccine passport policies to surveillance in East Germany. When it comes to the Second Amendment, he's argued that, unfortunately, some gun deaths are a necessary trade-off for freedom. And on immigration, his position is clear. It's a privilege, not a right.
All right, now we're going to move to the most direct evidence there is, his own words. What follows are verbatim quotes straight from the public record. We're just going to present them as they were reported, so you can hear the language for yourself.
We'll start with this quote from his show in March of 2024. The topic was immigration, and this statement directly brings up the Great Replacement, which is a very specific and controversial theory, and connects it to what's happening at the southern border.
Next up, this statement, made on his show in May of 2023, was about urban crime. This particular quote got a lot of media attention for its racial framing, and it was widely reported and circulated at the time.
From a discussion in April of 2024, this next quote outlines his position on doctors who provide gender-affirming care. The specific call for a Nuremberg-style trial is obviously a historically loaded reference, and he used it here to frame his call to action.
And finally, from a Turning Point USA faith event in April of 2023, this quote clarifies his argument on the Second Amendment. He directly frames the issue as a kind of cost-benefit analysis, positioning gun deaths as a necessary price for the freedom he believes the amendment guarantees.
This very confrontational public style, it raises a really interesting question. How does it hold up in different settings? So now we're going to compare his public debater persona with his approach when he's in a formal legal setting.
In a debate at the Oxford Union, Kirk made his philosophy on speech crystal clear. He argued that people should have the right to say things that are considered outrageous. This really sets the stage for what comes next.
And here it is. The sources show a really stark contrast in communication styles. His public persona, the one you see in campus debates, is all about that confrontational challenge. Prove me wrong. But in a legal setting, when he was questioned under oath by the January 6th committee, the official transcript shows a totally different approach, repeatedly invoking his Fifth Amendment right to avoid answering. The record shows two very distinct strategies for two very different arenas.
So, after going through the direct quotes, the legal testimony, the official messaging, what does all this primary source material actually show us?
When you piece it all together, the primary sources really do reveal a clear communication strategy. It's built on direct, confrontational language, just like those verbatim quotes we just looked at. And the stated purpose of this offense approach is to mobilize supporters by framing pretty much every political and social issue as a critical battle in a larger culture war.
And that brings us to our final question.
Which is really something for you to consider. When our political debates are built on direct, verifiable statements like the ones we've just reviewed, what does that actually mean for the future of that culture war? Where do we go from here?